Things aren't that rough, have to wait on Jesus' timing. But you've been struggling, trying to find out how to find Him. Look at the signs and wait on Jesus' timing.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is episode 2 of Siastes. We have a special guest today, but first let me introduce to you
Priority.
And our special guest today is known in the podcasting world, but not just the podcasting world, entrepreneurship as a whole. He's well known in the community, and he doesn't even need an introduction. So here we have CoryCash.
Thank you guys for having me. Thank you, appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so as you know, Siastes, we are merging the world of tech and artistry as a whole and the arts. The arts is misunderstood sometimes, but we are coming to understand it and how much it links to tech as a whole, because tech is everywhere in life. You know, it affects AI, blockchain, everything. So we're going to break it down. So my first question to you, Cory, is what does tech mean to you?
It means a lot to me right now because in terms of like the podcast that I do, if I didn't have tech right now, I don't know how I would do it because I'm a solo podcast person. I'm shooting it, I'm editing it.
Wow.
I'm, getting ideas for the questions I'm asking. It's doing research for me. So I feel like it's a big part of my life, especially when it comes to the podcast.
Okay, for those who don't know your podcast, what's the name of it?
Yeah, Black is the New Rich.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I have many questions about that. Why did you name it that in particular?
To be honest, I'm gonna tell you an honest story. I didn't actually come up with the name.
Okay.
So what had happened and how the podcast even started was during the pandemic. The George Floyd murder, I believe, and no disrespect to anyone, but. My style isn't to run up in the streets and then shout we need this, that, and the third, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, how can I touch the community in a different way?
Okay.
And at the time, I deemed myself as financially illiterate. So I was like, what better way would be to like teach the community and teach myself at the same time?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Smart.
Just to be honest.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, at first we called it Black Dollars. Yeah. So what I would do at the start was just post small businesses on the page just to get some love, get some reach. And I was like, Black Dollars, that sounds kind of corny.
Yeah.
And then my ex at the time, her sister was like, what about Black is the New Rich? I said, what did you say?
Oh.
She's like, Black is the New Rich. I said, give me that. And that's how the story is, to be honest. So I shout out to her.
Okay, Black is the new rich.
Yeah.
Which means at the back of some people's minds, Black wasn't associated with riches at one certain point.
Yeah, actually my tagline is back rich for the first time.
Okay.
We've been here before.
Facts. You really have. That is a amazing thing that you've realized. Like you had to see that gap in, like, I guess, how we've been experiencing life as Black people ourselves. Like, why aren't we seen in that light? No matter what we do. Like, for instance, I know, like, we do a lot of the stuff that is entertaining to people. Like, we're in the biggest basketball games, we're doing the biggest on the art side, but not a lot of us are on the management side, running the show and telling people, like, this is what you need to do to help the company get rich, and being on that side is very important. What do you think, like, as a person who is now running, I guess, your own, like, creative, I guess, company, like, building that out, how do you see yourself, like, as the CEO of that?
I see myself as operating this big ship. But I want to touch on a point that you said before, because I feel that it's important that we know that, like, our culture, I think, is kind of messed up in a way. And it's messed up because we let everybody else eat off of us but us.
You know
what I'm saying? Like,
real.
Just, this is a little bit of a sidebar, but like sometimes when I go into the Black hair stores and I see the Koreans running the store, I'm not going on China Street and seeing a Black Jamaican store on their street. And if I am, it's run by Chinese. So I don't like to blame other cultures, because if that's an opportunity for them, then why not take it? I think at some point we got to take accountability and be like, yo, no, let's control our own products, our own arts, our own technology, right? So yeah, I don't know if I answered that question, but I really wanted to get that point out there.
Yeah, I feel like ownership is something that we haven't been taught, but it's no longer an excuse because we have so much available via media, via people like yourself, certain examples of individuals. But how can we spread that to the younger generation? Because now all you keep hearing is a desperation of black youth wanting to obtain finances, whether it's the right way or the wrong way.
I think it starts at home. Honestly, I think we rely too much on this school system that doesn't work with us. It kind of works against us.
Yeah.
Like I even had a debate with someone the other day, and they were like, an advocate for post-secondary, and I was saying, you know what, I don't even care what grades my kids get, to be honest with you, and I don't even care if they go to post-secondary, because at the end of the day, it starts at home.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I would want to teach my kids finances, taxes, emotional intelligence, and stuff like that. So to answer your question, how can we pass this forward? It starts at home.
Yeah.
But it is hard too, because when you have a 2-parent household or even a 1-parent household that both parents are working, then your kids are getting raised by the system, and it just leads to another point that we got to be more careful how much kids were still popping out. Right?
Yeah.
One thing that I say, because I work with child and youth, and I've worked with a bunch of kids, and I tell them something that is very important to me. I said, education doesn't stop with school.
No.
You can educate yourself after school. They're going to teach you their way, and they're going to show you why this is right on this side and whatever. But there is more beyond that. After you pass your school stuff, people are not going to say, oh, because you finished high school, you deserve things now.
Yeah.
No, they're going to wait on you to have the skills and to have the experience possible, so that I can say, yeah, you're good at this, or you can now do this. I'm not gonna say, oh, because you now finished school, you're great. There's always more. Yes, there's always more to your education and to making yourself better to be, I guess, applicable for a job.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right, in a position.
But you can even break it down to school in general. They just tell us to make sure you pass this test. Once you get 70%, you get this. Once you get 60%, you get this. So they're not training you to be that CEO.
They're training you to seek rewards from these grades.
Correct.
And that's why personally, when I have kids, I won't be too caught up on the grades they get, because I think it's a confidence killer at the end of the day, to be honest.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
That's big.
Just to bring it back, you mentioned something about planning, about people who just have kids basically without the planning. And I feel like in Christian culture, we are told children are a blessing, be fertile and increase. But at the same time, if you go to other cultures, they're like, okay, can we afford this at this time? Are we emotionally intelligent enough to have it in this time period? I remember going to Ghana, and I went to villages just to help out. And I'm like, one person has 8 kids. And I'm like, but you can't afford even 2. So at some point, I feel like planning and even budgeting comes in. But I remember I spoke to Pierre once, and I'm like, you couldn't tell me at the age of 18 to financially plan when I didn't see myself living long. So at some point,
That's a bar.
at some point, you need to ask these young people in these certain areas, whether it's the Rexter areas of the world, the Jane and Finches of the world, like, do you see yourself living long? Because if you do, you need to be able to survive. Because the way the enemy is going to attack you the most is through your finances. If you can shut that down, he's going to shorten your lifespan.
I agree.
So I feel like it's so important as black youth to really take time by yourself and be like, I'm going to live long. I am going to have a family, but I'm going to do it with the right planning. So how do you feel we can help these younger generation plan?
Well, I think it starts at doing groundwork. Like, for example, providing, could be after school programs where they just come and kick the shit, but you get to plant little seeds. So that looks like maybe not preaching to them, but talking to them on their level as well. Because I'm sure as men, we've all had experiences when we're growing up that we would like to change, or what we would like to see different. But it just starts from, getting into these programs, or getting it just somehow making these kids come together, and we can talk to them not as like I don't know, just not as a preacher, but more on their level on certain things that what's appropriate at their age.
Yeah, and I think that also goes with what they're experiencing. right? To like, I like how you say to get on their level, because when you start to understand what they're experiencing, you can now talk to them.
Be empathetic.
Yeah, you can be empathetic and talk to them on a real level. Like, hey, I can show you or I can help you get to this stage in your life because I know what it's like. Like I know where you're coming from. I know what you're going through. So this is some things that you can do, some steps that you can plan to get from here to here. Because like based off of what you're saying, like I know people who don't even see past
30.
Yeah. So in their mind, it's like, if I'm not gonna get there, what am I fighting for? Like, you know, like what am I working hard for? But when you show them, hey, this is an age that you can get to for real. Like it shouldn't even be hard for human beings. It shouldn't be hard. Like the life expectancy in Canada is like somewhere in 65, something like that. So you are able to get to this age, start thinking, okay, what do you do to be well off by that time? And what is your plan to be in that space and be financially literate, right? And understand how you can now push forward in your life in a better way than probably how you've thought.
100%. I agree.
And I feel like when you look at Toronto actually has figures of success. There are people that's doing stuff in Toronto. The question is, how many people are going back to the schools to be like, I was in your position.
You know what? I used to look at, obviously, different figures in Toronto, be like, I think they can be doing more. But at the end of the day, I felt like over time that was just a waste of brain space. You know, like I just kind of look at like, let me take the accountability to myself. Like, what can I be doing? Yeah, it's easy to like pocket watch other people because you kind of know what they've done in their career. So, you know, they have a certain type of money or whatever to help other things. But who cares at the end of the day?
That's true.
Because if I do, like, for example, like I was shooting someone doing something for Black youth at the Catholic board or what have you. But just me being there and being able to talk to different kids, maybe if I help one kid, I'm okay with that. So I just think it's more not looking outwards and just looking inwards.
That's powerful. So basically, you've reached the point where you're like, instead of looking at anyone else, I'm going to do my part. And I feel like that's powerful because it's also a trap too. It's so easy to point your finger somewhere else, but forget about the fingers pointing back at you.
There you go.
At the same, I remember at one point, like, let me first speak back regarding Henry Carr and a speaking arrangement. I told myself, have I actually spent time in this area to understand what these kids are going through? I'm coming from North London. Yes, a place called Enfield, but those who love Heady One and all that stuff, that's where I used to actually relax. That area is serious. Anyone that's gone through there in London knows that this is a serious area. But I told myself, I want to see what these kids are going through. So I was like, let me take the bus. Let me go to McDonald's.
Yeah,
and let me sit there. So I sat there, I texted him, I'm like, oh, you're around? He's like, oh, yeah, I work nearby. I'm like, oh, I'm sitting here. He's like, what are you sitting here for? I'm like, oh, I want to see what the kids are going through. They came in balaclavas, hooded up. They were looking at me, heads up, and I was waving at them. I was talking to them like, oh, who's your favorite artist? Why? Because I feel like it reaches a point. You need to feel what these kids are really going through. I can stand up there and be like, oh, yes, I'm the CEO of a tech company, this, that, the other. When they go home, they're going to know where to sleep.
Exactly.
So I need to really put aside where I'm at and really talk to them on the same level you just mentioned and be like, they're going through something deep right now. When they go home, they don't know about that guy they're avoiding to get home. So you were saying something.
And I feel like that's the only way we're gonna come up with solutions that actually work. It's just getting on this ground level, taking our ego out of it. We're never too big to get back, like, you know, for where some of us started. And the fact that you just did like people watching essentially, like that shows a lot, one, about your character, and one, how much change you want to do. So we got to keep doing that.
And I feel like sometimes we feel like we need to be from an area to make a difference.
No.
And it doesn't always have to be like that. God can take you to a whole other area. At one point, when I used to live in Atlanta, I was at English Avenue with those who were smoking weed, heroin. Every time I go in there, they would talk about Rala. I didn't used to listen to rap too much. Now I know who Rala is because he's back from prison. At the time, I didn't know. So I'm out there with my Bible ministry school and being like, oh yeah, do you love the Lord? And the ministry school that I went to, basically they were like, why? So they're like, Albert, please lead. Because they're afraid of the people who are standing there. So I come in there, the cars are stopping there, like, come, do you want some? I'm like, no, I'm just preachers. So I like to see what is actually going on in the area, because you can only make a difference by being there. So that's why I'm saying, like, you don't need to be from an area to make a difference.
I 100% agree.
But just do your part.
Yeah,
That's it.
That brings like a question to my mind, like, because it just hit me that so many of these kids in these areas, like, they use tech. Like, tech is something that they use on a daily basis, right? But they are not. I don't know if they're realizing that this tech is built by somebody, and somebody is pretty much, you using that tech is making somebody else money.
100%.
Right? And it's like, okay, now what are you doing to allow this to be an investment for you as well? So what is something that I guess we could do as people who are, I guess, now leading in like media and arts and tech and stuff, like, help them realize like these things are capable of putting you in a financially better position, and you can invest in yourself using these tech?
I think even before we get there, we got to peel the layers back. And again, that comes with understanding what these kids are going through. I do think it's hard for us to talk to them straight out the gate about tech when they can go home and have a crackhead uncle or something, abuse is going on at home. So let's build these spaces where they can just be kids, because a lot of them can't even be kids when they get to home. You know what I'm saying? So before we can even talk about the tech and what they could be doing, let's try to normalize them just being human beings first.
Yeah. I think that's powerful, because even for myself, like, I remember just speaking to my wife, and she was like, oh yeah, I had my own room at this age. And I'm like, own room? I didn't experience that. Like, oh, so where did you do? I did my degree at one point. Some of my papers were on the floor.
Wow.
I didn't have money to have a table. So these are the things that I'm like, wait, if I went through this, there's someone who's gone through worse. So how can I talk to him about, oh, you want to have your tech company? He's like, no, strip it back. Tell this guy that no matter what you're currently going through, you can reach this level. Exactly. But first, let me be transparent to you, and you be transparent to me. Because I feel like the biggest thing in especially black men culture, we don't know how to be transparent.
It's hard. It's hard. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. It's hard.
It's very hard to be like, okay, let me be real. This is how I'm feeling. This is what I went through. This is where I am now. And I feel like it's so easy to talk about the text and the arts without adding these things, but it all comes together
For sure.
as men. Like, every one of us has gone through stuff to reach this position. But at the same time, we need more of these conversations. That's why when I see Black is the New Rich, and I'm like, these three young black men are relaxing and speaking. People don't know how powerful that is, because egos can come in the room. Everyone's like, I'm not speaking. But to continuously see the same faces over and over, that's a big step.
Yeah.
Like that will help a young person more than you realize. So my next question is, like, how is it working with other people in a podcast? Like,
For the last couple, are you talking about referring like the last couple things I've put out?
yes, the last couple, yes.
Yeah, so that is actually a little spin-off of so Black is the New Rich is just me, that podcast.
Oh, just you.
Yeah, so
Okay.
that one is actually called Code Switch. So I'm actually technically on 2 podcasts, but we're just doing like a pilot kind of thing right now. We're just putting out clips and seeing how people react. And it's my 2 other boys, right? So it allows me personally to like actually speak, because I'm mostly doing the interviews, right?
Yeah.
So it's been going good. We've actually technically only shot 1 episode. The one people are seeing right now, we shot that about 5 months ago. Yeah. We shot that about 5 months ago, but then I was just going through some stuff. I had to put everything on pause.
Yeah.
But I do like the dynamic of like that podcast, because it allows more relevant topics other than just me interviewing someone and getting information on their specific field. Which I'm going to do both.
Yeah.
That's good. So, like, if I were to just look at the podcast you've done and the caliber of individuals that have come in the podcast, is there any similarities? Because I feel like everyone is accomplishing things on a high level. So is there any certain points or similarities between those individuals?
Definitely. They all operate on a frequency with a clear mind. Obviously, their work ethic is a little bit different than the average, which I noticed. and I could say at the core, their confidence.
Yeah.
You know, they have a vision and they believe in it, and I feel like they're on a mission, and it's just no one can like sway them off their vision. You can just hear it in like the way they answer their questions, the way they carry themselves when outside of the podcast. So they all have this unwavering confidence, I would say.
I like that. I feel like the based off of how you're doing the podcast and I love the fact that you said like the new one is allowing you to kind of express more about yourself and to talk about yourself in a new light, like as well as talking to other people, because now people can build like a connection with you. And and I also love the fact that you're talking about like people don't get swayed off their path and have something to go to, and it builds their confidence. Just to go back a little bit to the kids that I talked to, I was telling them like, so I do something with them between two schools where I invest some money for them and I show them what it's like. I say, okay, you guys do the research for these companies that you want me to invest in, and then we'll all look at them grow. Wow. And you guys will be in competition with the other school, and you guys get to see who is growing the most with the companies that they've picked. Yeah. And then whoever wins, they get all the money or whatever. Oh, that's big. So then it puts them in a position,
a competitive state.
It puts them in a competitive state, but it also puts them in a position where their education means something. Yes. Right? It means something deeper.
You're onto something.
Right?
There. You're onto something.
Yeah.
There.
I wanted them to see that it means something deeper. Like when you put effort into something, you get to see the real rewards out of it, right? And I love the fact that you said when somebody is now successful or has been successful for a while and is seeing it, they start to believe it more within their inner self. Like it flows out of them, right? And I think that if we're able to start getting people in those type of positions where you are feeling that your success is like almost predestined, like this is who you are, not who you're just becoming. Like, no, you were successful from the moment you came out. Like you have to put your mindset in a way where you're thinking in a idea of success, you'll get there. Like you'll get there. If you think of yourself there, then you'll naturally start making differences in your life and differences in the way that you walk, the way that you talk, to be in that position. Yeah. Right? Knowing where you're at. So my question is, now that you've started talking more like yourself and the things that I guess like you're about, and now having other people to talk about with and talking to people, like interviewing them, I guess this is going to be a kind of hard question. What do you think is better, like in your opinion?
I don't think anyone is better because they offer different things. So, for example, on Black is the New Rich, when I interview someone, I'm putting them in a position of expertise where they can now teach an audience about their expertise. When it comes to the other one, Code Switch, we get to more talk about relevant topics. So that could be, I don't know, it could just be anything, really. It could be more even not the bash relationship stuff. It all has what's the word? Substance to it. But I just think each of the different podcasts, Code Switch and Black is the New Rich, they just bring different types of conversation. So I think they're both needed equally, to be honest.
Yeah. I feel like our culture needs more discussion because I feel like there's certain subject matters that people don't have the platform to speak on. So if we look at tech as a whole, just a quick pivot, and we look at the people who are in tech, do you feel like there needs to be more of us in the tech industry?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Like I feel, because I'm not deep into the tech world. Okay. I just think the tech people are too quiet. They're too behind the scenes. They're too behind the screen. They spend too much time on the computer. Like, just come out. Just come out. Yeah.
We're changing that.
This is the first time I've heard you speak. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And we've been in DM con maybe a couple of years. Who knows?
Yeah, it's been a long time.
It's been a long time, right? So we need, so when we started this podcast, I was like, one of my first thoughts was like, man, Albert, he speaks well. I didn't even know you were British. Like, so we need more character in front of the camera.
Yeah.
So I hope does that answer your question?
Yeah, that definitely answers, because I feel like even Mark Zuckerberg, no one knew him for so many years.
Now he's out.
Yeah.
Now he's out. He's talking about sports.
Yeah.
He's doing fashion merges. His top was like Mason Margiela. Like,
He did a track with T-Pain.
T-Pain.
Exactly.
so
It's crazy.
I feel like AI has pushed people to come out.
Yeah.
Because they're like, if I don't come out, people think I'm an AI. Sometimes you need
Exactly.
Everyone needs to like come out, show who they are. And I feel like is helping people realize like, oh, those who are tech CEOs aren't like separate individuals. They love basketball. They like to chill. They like to do this. The only separate thing is they have a skill which they worked on. I wasn't specializing in coding. I didn't do my degrees in coding. I just came here, went to U of T, did a fintech boot camp, and I was like, I'm going to complete this and do what I'm doing. But I started asking people in my class, like, oh, what did you get? I'm like, I got higher than him. Like, you did? What about this guy? Like, this guy has glasses. Like, he's like, oh, I got higher. And I'm like, wait, let me see something. And they're like, oh, can we see proof? I'm like, okay, here's my password to GitHub. Because anyone that tells you that, oh, yeah, I know how to code, I'm like, oh, really? GitHub is public. You can see if someone wants to code by the stuff they've done. So they're like, oh, wow. I'll be like, you should do something. And suddenly, that's when I'm like, oh, I want to do my own company. Siastes. They all laughed. I went to one person, VC. They're like, oh, yeah, it's a good idea, this, that. Another person is like, oh, you need like 80K, 90K. And I was home by myself. I told my brother, he lives in Dubai, and he was like, I'll be like, 90K is a bit much, like this, that. I told God, I'm like, you say you're my provider, right? This is these situations where I need to like provide. And he found a way to provide. Why? Because I had a friend who specializes in Forex. So the little I had, I'm like, do my best. And when I hit, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this.
Oh, wow.
So when I said I'm going to do this, I'm like, okay, now it's happening. So when you get one employee, two, and then it goes to 3, 4, at that point, you can't quit.
Yeah,
At that point, like, you need to
because you're responsible for feeding them too.
Because suddenly some people's destiny and dreams is tied to yours. So then you need to make it, not for yourself, but for everyone who you've recruited that believes in you. So I feel like as black like CEOs, whether you're in tech or not, when you start getting employees, it's bigger than you.
It's way bigger than you. It's because they need meals. Correct. They need things in their lives. And that it's reliant of how efficient you are.
Correct.
Right? So
I feel like us in general, we need more conversations so that the moment we can be in a position to recruit people who are like us, that's when we change everything.
Yeah. And you hit on a point of like, you know, tech people being out there, because I think like Elon Musk is probably the most out there.
He has the blueprint right now.
He is like he has the most money now, right?
And he's cool right now. He's cool. He has a cool about him.
Which is crazy, because we're talking about you know, tech people doing it, and the person probably doing it the best is making the most somehow, like making the most doing it the way he's doing it. Right? So I think there's some credibility to having or understanding tech, knowing tech, and then talking about it, like being a person that people can relate to, that people can feel like, oh, you're guiding me into this new direction. Because realistically, that's what tech does for us. Because even though we're in like what 2024, almost 2025 now, we're still kind of new to tech. Like it only came out like what, maybe 30, 40 years ago?
It's let alone for us.
Yeah.
So if we're talking about AI and we're already seen as behind, could you imagine bringing AI to Africa? They haven't even caught on to coding. And you want to bring AI. That's why I'm telling people, I'm like, you need to include some of these people, the same people you're going to speak to. If you're in a position, tech CEO, whichever CEO, wherever you're from, try and recruit one person from a tough neighborhood. Let them shadow you. And see how, if you're a videographer, like whatever you do, let one person shadow you. You're going to change their life. I feel like we don't do that enough. To bring one person from a tough neighborhood. Work experience, I remember those in my class, like those who were white, they all went under a lawyer. They all went under solicitor. Their uncles were barristers, this, that. Me and the others, we got a shoe store called Clark's in the UK. That's where they put us. Every black person was in a shoe store. And then the other people were in the law office, because they're basically telling us that's where you're going to reach. Like, that's exactly where you're going to be. So we might as well start now. 14, 15, we were in there. So then I realized to myself, something needs to change. So if we know, sometimes we want to be perfect before we become a mentor. You don't need to be perfect to be a
I agree. I agree. I tell that to
Big.
people all the time, not to cut you, but
yeah.
I feel like sometimes when I deal with like content clients, they're like, I don't know if I can talk about certain things. I'm like, listen, think about like your beginning starts from the letter A and your ending might start from the end at Z, right?
Yeah.
But if you're at C, that means you can teach the people at A and B.
That's
Right.
powerful. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So like, it doesn't matter if you have a little bit of expertise, a little bit more than the average, you can
Yeah.
teach. Let's get it.
That's
That
powerful.
we need more teachers
Yeah.
and more examples of bringing, like you said, these youth along.
And I feel like we need to have also an international mindset too. Whatever you're doing here successful, you can branch out to other areas too. There's people in Atlanta, people in Houston, people in Accra, people in Lagos who need that gift you have to go over there. But I feel like a lot of the time, especially in Toronto, I hear a lot of stuff like, oh yeah, they don't support each other. I'm like, do you need them to support you? You don't need to wait for no man to help you out.
Yeah, 100%.
You can do this yourself.
100%.
And you can let God catapult you to new heights.
I agree.
Do you feel like, in terms of your experience, do you feel like people in their minds have limited their thinking to be like, no one's going to help me anyway, type thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like people want help before they do the work themselves.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that become like they don't even realize that they're setting themselves up for failure with that type of mindset.
Yeah.
They want to collab before they do the work. They want to do all these things. They have all these grand ideas, which ideas are good because things have to start with an idea. But I just feel like they keep themselves limited by not doing the work early.
That's powerful.
Yeah. There's also, I think there's a lack in belief in self.
For sure.
Right. And I think when you believe in what you're doing, you do it regardless.
Yeah.
If you knew that you taking one step forward would allow you to make $1 million in the 10,000th step, you would start stepping. Right?
Fast.
You'd start stepping. You wouldn't ask somebody else, oh, can you step for me? You're stepping.
Yeah.
And then whoever decides to come with you on the road to stepping to $1 million, you'll be like, yeah, sure. I mean, if you decide to even stop stepping, I must keep stepping because
100%.
I know that when I get to that 10,000th step,
Yeah.
$1 million is going to be
waiting
waiting
for
there
me.
for me.
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
So there's this idea now that when you know what you're doing is like has some, I guess, some credibility to it, you start making those steps for yourself and start building out for yourself. And even in Toronto, I think like the way that you're talking about, there's this idea sometimes that like if people don't support me where I'm from, I'm not gonna make it. But it's weird, bro. It's really weird where you find that people that are nowhere close to you, like people, like I remember growing up thinking like, because of where I grew up, like thinking, oh no, those guys would never rock with me. Like, you know what I mean? So I'm not rocking with them. Like just to find out that when I got older, the people over there were the ones that were paying me. They're the ones that say, oh, we love you.
Yeah.
Oh, we want you back.
Yeah.
Oh, we need you. I'm like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
Because my whole life I grew up thinking that they would mess with me. Like, just because of this group think that I was growing up with, this idea that I was growing up with, you know what I mean? Just being with the man them and like just thinking, it's like, this is not true. This mentality that you're putting yourself into, it is stopping you from your success.
100%.
Like, and what is the way that we can start, I guess, overlooking that and seeing, okay, we have things that can help us, the text. We have some mentors. We have, people who have done it. What can we now look towards to start to make those steps towards them?
Honestly, a lot of things is going to come back. Sorry. To inner work and on developing unwavering confidence. I just feel in order to get to that point, you got one, obviously the belief system, and two, you just have to believe in your vision.
Yeah.
Because I promise you, there's been times that I thought about, oh man, like I don't know if so and so supports me or this doing that and third. I go through those battles too. Don't get me wrong, or I have gone through those battles, but then. When I realized, well, I stuck to this Black is in Rich vision, and there's been people across the world that hits me up about certain podcasts, and that was validation that it doesn't even matter what's going on that's close to me. Like what's close to me, I get it. Maybe they're not as loud as supporting me because they know me and I get it.
Yeah.
It just is what it is. I think everybody goes through that.
Everyone does go through that. Even Jesus went through it.
There you go.
That's a comment.
Yeah, he did exactly because he was a carpenter. Yeah,
But
exactly.
even he went through it. So your parents, your uncles, your cousins, family,
They're just
friends,
used
they're
to
like,
you.
yeah.
That's all.
like
So
that.
it's
I like
time
that.
that you become the testimony they use to be like, oh wait, he made it, so
Yeah.
I can do this. Because at the end of the day, they don't see it, and that's fine. I feel like sometimes we are easily affected by people that don't believe in us. We're like, oh, they should be believing this, that. Leave it.
Yeah.
Put it aside. And I feel like even for tech founders, the same thing happens. If a VC doesn't support me and give me that 1 mil, I'm done. Oh, my idea is not going to work. Put aside the VC. Put it aside. Like, does your idea generate money?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because if it
Exactly.
generates
that's all that
money,
matters. That's all that matters.
does it? Because I'm telling you, many tech founders that you hear that just VC backed is generating no money. And then you look at it like, okay, if you're in the arts and you're making music and you're making no money, eventually you're going to stop. That doesn't happen in many tech. Sometimes the checks are thrown in so much that it keeps running, and then in your head, some companies are bigger than it is, but they're not as big as you think. And that's why you need to really stop putting people on a pedestal and be like,
So you don't know the back end. You don't know what they're going through.
Damn
correct.
right.
You do not have. Some people is like they can't sleep because different investors are like, bro, it's been 4 years. You're still a startup.
Jeez.
You haven't made no money in 5
Jeez.
years.
Crazy hearing that from
Yeah.
like people that are not in tech.
But
It's
that's
crazy.
Yeah,
That's what I'm
yeah.
saying, because they won't tell you. And I feel like it's time that I don't want to deceive another black young man who's like, I want to get into tech. I want to be like, they might not support you, but please generate money. Do it for yourself. If someone's like, oh, my tech company is not going up, okay, then do something on the side legitimately. Don't get pushed out of your position because you feel like you haven't got a VC support. Keep going. Make sure it generates money. Do it yourself. Believe in yourself. Because there's some companies been 5 years, 6 years, they're still a startup. Siastes has been there for 1 year and I'm seeing traction. I'm like, why? Because I've let God take control. People are telling me, oh, you need to do this first. And then after that, what is it? Pre-seed, seed this. I'm like, I'm putting all that aside. I'm going because Jesus told me to go. He provided money and it's going. So if there's employees and people working for Siastes, because they're not working for me, they're working for the Lord. He bought this idea. So you guys are all CEOs. I don't expect you to be working here forever. But while you're here, I want everyone to become a CEO one day. Remember the NVIDIA statistic?
Yeah. The fact that NVIDIA, 76% of them, the employees are millionaires.
Yeah.
Wow.
76%.
That's inspiring.
That is nuts.
That's nuts. That's crazy.
So it's time that we understand equity too. Just because you're working for someone don't mean you can't register your company and trademark the idea. Like you're not just a worker. At the end of the day, Elisha in the Bible was a worker too, but he became his own boss when Elijah died. So you need to really change that mindset and be like, I may be working, but I'm my own boss too.
Also, for those who might not know what VC is, just give them
It's a venture
explanation.
capitalist. So basically, you have an idea, you're in a pre-seed round, and you're waiting to just get that first check. Sometimes people use that to validate that idea and be like, okay, he believes in me, so this is going to go. But there are so many failed companies that receive 1 mil down the drain. Yeah. So it's very important to just humble yourself, whether you're backed or not, and make sure you're making money. Some people feel like you need to just have this speciality, strategy. No, does it make money?
Yeah, because the issue is like people don't realize that when you ask somebody else for money, it doesn't come for free. Like, it's not coming for free. It's a loan. VC is I'm giving you maybe 250K, 1 mil. I'm taking 10% of your company, 15, 20% of your company. I'm gonna need my money back somehow at some point.
And that's why it's important, because you don't know how much equity somebody has. Someone can come and be like, I'm a founder, they got 30% on the seed level. So by the time you go to round 1, how much percent will you have? 6% for your own idea?
Jeez.
So these are the things, like, especially as like black young men, people have these discussions who don't look like us. But it's time that we come in the room and be like, you came with the idea, you learned to code, or you got co-founders like codes, you both got 50-50. By the time that you're like, oh, I want to reach this level, you got 10% so early. You need to think about
You got priced
equity.
out of your own business.
Yeah, it's rough.
And it's happening. Crazy. So at some point, at the same time, yes, people come into your life you may think is a blessing, but it can end up being a curse. So you need to really discern those individuals.
You know what I think? Just even from this conversation, I know you guys are interviewing me, but I'm gonna spin it back. I think because you're in the tech world, you know about VCs, probably hedge funds as well. What I think you can do personally is break this down in a very simple way so we can catch up. You know, because even through this conversation, I can hear little things that can be taught to our culture so it can become normal later on.
Yeah.
So I'm leaving you with that.
he does have something called Siastes studies.
I got Siastes studies, teaching coding, teaching all this stuff.
Breaking it down like grade 3
But
language.
you know what? I feel like there's fear. So, for example, if there's not too many people like us that's in, why would they say the truth to block a potential investor? You get it?
Fair.
So at the same time, I understand where they're coming from. But at the same time, if you believe that you have a Lord and Savior on your side, you shouldn't be afraid to speak because you're going to help. So I don't want to lie to the people. That's one thing I would never do. I'd rather not speak to any young boy, girl, and teach them about anything if I'm going to lie to them.
Yeah.
I'm going to be real to them and just put it out there. Because at the end of the day, we've been told many lies. We've been told lies by our own parents. Like, I learned a big lesson that I can look up to my parents, but I'm not going to look up to them in terms of financial literacy. Like, you can respect them as the Bible said, but you can have mentors on that area.
Yeah.
Because even having a degree doesn't mean you're financially literate.
Yeah.
And that's why there's so many financial advisors that has robbed artists.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Why did Fat Joe go to jail because of taxes when he gave the money to him and he just didn't pay it? So it's more important for artists to know about taxes, to know about investing, to know about all of this stuff.
I think it's like, and it comes back to our entire community. Like it's this idea of, and I think we all kind of hit on it like a bit of like, how can we start talking about some stuff that people in our community need to know, right? But like haven't got the education about that stuff yet. And there's this, I was talking to somebody the other day about like, oh, like why can't this happen in the education system? Like why?
Yeah.
I was like, there needs to come to a point where we're helping the youth love education.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like how do we get them to engage in it and for it to be entertaining in a way where they can fall in love with the education. Like for instance, even how I was
what
doing
you're doing.
Yeah, you see what I'm saying?
I'm gonna let that to you too. Like, I need you to expand on that because that's a way that I just heard a couple minutes of you talking about what you did. That can be very groundbreaking if you keep on watering that seed.
Yeah,
100%.
Like, you know, and based off of that, like I didn't want the kids to just hear it from me.
Yes,
and hear it from my
Yeah.
voice. Because like, yo, we've heard so many of these people that have more money than us or millionaires that have this and that. And I'm telling you, I've talked to so many guys with more money than me, more money than I could even think of. And that were saying like, yeah, so you know, just put in bare effort, lots of effort, man, you'll get there. Bro, man, we're tired of that, man, we're tired of that. And I know the kids that I've been talking to, they're tired of that too.
Yeah, exactly.
Like they need like real, I need to see it for real. Like how is this going to benefit me?
Yes.
What you're saying is true, but I feel like lack of transparency. No one wants to speak. You just said like, oh, I've been speaking to you for a long time. I don't even know how he speaks. People don't even want to put themselves out there.
Yeah.
So when I'm doing my coding boot camp, and I remember I'm wearing my son in front of me while I'm coding, people don't want to speak about the nitty gritty. You need to go through steps. It is very hard. And everyone around you needs to understand, like, this is where I'm going. Are you going to follow me? Because you could get left behind. And I know it's a tough discussion, but sometimes...
That's okay, though.
Yeah, it's a tough discussion. But I feel like people don't want to say, but you have to be selfish to reach where you want to reach.
100%.
Like, you need to, like, really tunnel in and be
in.
like, you can't please everyone and make it.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. If you really want to, and that's why I have so much compassion on even the tech CEOs that look at, like if I see them, I speak to them on a level like, okay, give me the real. And they tell me confidentially, and I keep it confidential. But when I go home, I pray for them because I'm like, I need to pray for him because if he fails, I'm gonna fail because he's with all of these people back.
And he's
him.
connected.
Correct.
Yeah.
So if
That's
we,
just gonna come a trickle effect
correct.
down to you. Yeah.
So if he's finally been let in, what am I gonna do? Talk about him?
yeah, exactly.
No, pray for him so that when they look at the next black guy, they're like, okay, we're gonna back
Yeah,
him.
yeah.
But I feel like as black people, we don't help, like we don't support each other. It's like, oh yeah, you heard about him. I knew him about 8 years ago. And I told you about this. When I first came to Toronto, I didn't know anyone. I used to go out to people talking. I remember like, oh, I spoke to that guy. Look, I saw him on Instagram. I met him. Oh, I know him. I'm like, you know him? What do you mean you know him? I know him like 6 years ago. I'm like, what's that got to do with me?
Yeah.
Like I just came here. Like, and I feel like we remind people too much.
See, that's my problem with the city, to be honest, because personally, like I've put it out there as public information. I've lived a lot of different lives, and I feel like continuing to be in Toronto, I don't know, depending on who it is, they remember me for certain things. And that gets frustrating at a point because like, yo, I've moved past that. Whatever image that you have of me in your mind, I get it. There's a time period. But I'm that Cory, it doesn't even exist anymore. So that's my problem with Toronto.
But I feel one thing sorry to cut you off, but one thing I noticed also is like when people reach a high frequency of thinking and successful people, we really don't care about what someone's saying. We want to see how you are now, and that's it. We don't care because everyone has a past. We discussed this before. Everyone has one.
Yes.
So the question is, are you going to allow it to affect you, or are you going to be like, the world is so big?
And I think that there's this like very nice balance of like being selfish and also being selfless. Like you can be working towards your passion, towards your goal, and still support other people on the side. Just know that it's mutual. Like for instance, I have my own company, you know, like I work like I'm a founder, Roundtable Records, I do my thing. But why can't I also work with my brother Siastes, wear his band, support him, be right here, talk about him, shake his hand, brother. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's no problem with being a brother to somebody else who's trying to do great stuff for other people. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's what businesses are for. That's what entrepreneurs are for. We're literally, they only get paid if they're able to have a solution to somebody else's problem. Right? That's what you're doing. You're building solutions. And people are paying you for finding the solution that they couldn't find for themselves. Right? So what can we start doing to let people understand like, hey, yo, you can support other people like and still follow your own thing. Like you're not lessening.
You're not slighted by it.
You're not slighted by helping somebody else. How can we make other people know that?
Well, I think for starters, what we're doing right now. Right? So like these like safe spaces of media, this podcast stuff. Like to be honest, like I'm for Black is the New Rich, I may be at maybe 73 episodes. So roughly, I've only done a couple people twice, but that's about 70 people that I got to meet. You know what I'm saying? That's 70 people I got to connect with, and I can say, oh, there's a connection there. So I just think more stuff like, well, for me, I'm thinking more things like this, or just like, you know, just reaching out and be like, yo, how can I support? One thing my friend said the other day is like, we don't ask this question enough. And it's like, how can I be a better friend to you? We don't ask that question enough. Right? And when she said that to me, I was like, whoa, I don't even know how to answer that right now. And that's an issue in itself. Right? So I feel like if we can expand that dialogue, that's a level of transparency that almost feels uncomfortable at first. But when we get over that hump, things are going to start to happen.
I like that. You know what's crazy? I've asked that to my fiance. Like before we even got like to the stage that we're at now, 5 years, whatever. Before I'd be like, how can I be a better man? Like, you know, and I would have conversations with her like every few months about like, okay, like I know like I've done good and you're saying like I've been doing good, but we still have arguments here and there. So there has to be some way for me to improve. What can I do to be better for you? And to this day, I don't think I've asked my friends that. Though.
It's a little awkward. But we gotta just break that because it's okay. And I feel like between men, especially if we do that for each other, we'll have a different type of love. I think personally, it'll be a closer connection. It feels weird at first, of
does.
course,
Yeah.
but I suggest people to start trying it.
But that's the thing. I feel like also pain comes in though. When
It
you're
is
a black
pain.
young man and you've gone through so much pain, the wall is up. You think that, oh yeah, I love the Lord, my wall is down. Oh no, it's not. You haven't spoken to enough people to know if your wall is up. So to even be in a position where you're like, how can I be a better friend? You're afraid that he's gonna say something that's gonna anger you. Be like, what? Like,
But that's okay. That's what we need. Let's get that out of our system.
to get it out,
You know,
yeah.
let's get that out and then figure out if we can move past
Yeah.
something like this.
Yeah.
Because if we do, we know we just develop that connect. It's even stronger.
yeah.
You know?
We can talk better about even more in like things that might bother us that we don't talk about. Like, okay, now that we've gotten through that conversation, what are finances like?
Yes.
How can I help
Yes.
you with
And be more transparent. Like,
Yeah.
one of my friends, we're close, and he's very transparent with his finances with me, and I love that because it's just like the goal is just we're just there to get it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I don't care where you're at now.
Yeah.
And I just feel like if we are more transparent with our finances, with
Yeah.
obviously people we trust,
Yes.
I feel like it could build. I don't know, that momentum that it could build can only get stronger and stronger and take us to different places as well.
Because I remember speaking to someone who grew up very, very tough. When he went to the bank and they gave him 20,000, he said, "Thank you, Lord." Like he was a Christian. He said, "Thank you." He didn't think about paying it back. He was like, "Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you." Then it backfired, and he's like, "I'm facing attack." I'm like, "What type of attacks you were facing?" He's like, "Oh, you see those loans that I took out? They want their money back." I'm like,
man.
"You didn't think you were paying it back?" But that's how deep the financial literacy can go.
Yeah.
There are people who's like, they don't have the sense of, oh, if I pay back this time, my credit score is going to go up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Relationship
Yeah.
with the bank, frequency of payment, they
Yeah.
don't know
Yeah.
anything
But
about it.
I will say, I don't think. Well, my household,
Yeah.
we weren't taught. I wasn't taught
Oh,
that,
no.
so I messed up my credit early.
Yeah.
So I just, again, it even goes back to the question like that you guys asked me
Yeah.
30 minutes ago. I think this education that we need
Yeah.
has to start at home.
Yeah.
What you said is powerful. You said it messed up and you repaired it.
Yes.
And I feel like everyone in black culture, that's what we are doing. So you're like, oh, I want the meal, I want the meal. When the meal comes, because you're not prepared for it, it will
You're
go.
gonna mess that up. Yeah.
It will go. People are like, oh, no, all I need is that, and I'm straight. Oh, really? Because when the money comes, your taste change.
Yeah.
Suddenly, your taste change. Suddenly, it's like, oh yeah, I don't even like watches. When the money comes, oh, that Rolex is good. Now suddenly you're like, oh, I just like my Dunks. Like I'm not even that. Suddenly, you're like, oh, these Gucci's. Like, your mind is triggered. Like, oh, I can afford this.
I can
now.
afford it
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
So I feel like at some point we need to reach a stage where it's like, no, if I receive 1 mil, I've really got 500K.
There you go.
Yeah.
Like I've
If
really
that.
got
If that.
If that.
Damn right.
Yeah, and even that, like I need to put some in savings. So I need to spend 100,000, and even that, if I spend it, then I'm done.
Yeah.
So that's the conversation.
Also knowing the ROI on that. Like
Exactly.
if I spend 100,000, can I get 150?
Yeah,
exactly.
Like, you know what I mean? So that
Exactly.
you're making on what you're spending and you're building proper.
and I feel like as tech comes in, these reels on Instagram make it look like, oh, when I get this, I'm going to triple it. Oh, really? what are you going to do to triple it? I'm going to do Forex. Oh, really? Okay. Trade with this $200 and show me what you can get.
Yes. Get 600.
Yeah,
Then,
get
then we'll
600.
talk.
Correct.
Yeah.
It will go straight to zero. They're like, oh, I flopped. My money's got. Like, that's the training. Because I'm telling you this, if you get 500K, you're like, I'm going to double it in Forex. Put the 500K in the Forex account. Trade with it. When you wake up, you'll be like, I forgot to get out my trade. It's gone to 100K. What are you going to do? Like, that's the questions that we need to bring up. Like, it's easy to joke, but at some point you will reach that stage. I have faith that everyone that wants to reach a number, you will reach it. But when you reach it, what are you going to do?
Yes. I agree.
What is your mentality on that in that space, right?
Correct.
And I think even like going back to like credit,
Yes.
right? Like, bro,
Nightmares.
I promise you, like one thing that I didn't understand as a child, and I realized very early when I went to post-secondary, like, yo, hold on. Yo, I'm gonna have to pay this back, eh?
Yeah.
Bro, I remember I was in college thinking, damn, broski, like this is, this is like what, 5,000?
Yeah.
Like, what is this? For 1 year?
Yeah.
Was
Yeah.
like for 1 year at 5, almost 6K from OSAP came through. I'm thinking, wait, hold on. wait, I'm gonna have to pay this back.
Yeah.
And that's 1 year. So what happens when I have to go to school for 4?
Yeah.
20 bands.
That's what my brother was telling me, like, in Dubai, there's many like Ghanaians that go over there, and they give them a big credit card, like 70K.
Jeez.
70K credit card. They're like, thank you, Lord. They're spending the money. People don't know this in Dubai, but when you're in debt and you don't pay, they give you a travel ban, so you can't travel. So they were like,
they lock you up in there.
You'll be stuck. People don't know this because they don't live in Dubai. So you spend the money. You're like, oh, I'm running back. Like, I can't pay this. So you go there. They're like, excuse me, have you paid your debt? They're like, what debt? What are you talking about? He's like, oh,
wow,
that 70K debit card that you got from the bank.
Now you're not leaving.
You can't leave. Now you're stuck.
Crazy.
Wow.
So these are the things that people don't think about. Like, they may see it's a joke now, but there's some countries where you can't even travel.
Yeah.
And I feel like spiritually, some people can't travel either because you're stuck because of the financial literacy. You can't do anything. So you can have all these creative ideas. I want to start this business. Be literate in terms of this.
Yeah.
Because you're going to take that same mentality into the VC mentality. He's going to give you $1 million. You're like,
and you're going to blow that right off.
Thinking it's blessed, not thinking about the ROI that you had to get on that.
That's why some people's VC they don't really have the money. You may think they have the money, but they don't. You need to go back to them and be like, okay, what are you going to do? Okay, then I release this and I release it. Sometimes it's for the best for us young black men to do that to us. Because if you give someone $1 million today check, they'll feel something in their system as we speak. They won't know what to do.
I agree. Actually, that brings me to like a thought that, I don't know, like I've been saying this for a while, that I feel like I hear a lot of people saying, oh, I want this amount or I want this amount. But my question is, like we were talking about, like, what for?
Yeah.
That's the question.
What for?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
A lot of people don't even have it,
No.
A lot of people don't even have
they
an
don't
idea.
know.
Like,
No.
I want to be a millionaire. Okay, why?
Yeah.
What are you going to do after you reach
Yeah.
$1 million? What are you doing?
What now?
I buy
A house.
Gucci. I want to buy. This is I've had so many people. I want to buy Gucci. I want to buy a watch. I want to buy 3 cars. I'm like,
Then what?
two of those are probably depreciating assets.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm going to be honest. Like, when I first got a good job at Barclays Wealth, good salary, I went to the Gucci store and I
You balled out.
just the truth. Like, I just went crazy because I'm like, I suffer so much. My brother came and he makes it worse for me. That's why I thank God I don't live anywhere near to my brother. When he comes, he hypes me up.
Yeah.
I remember he came on holiday last year. He was like, oh, Albert, like, let's go to this store. Oh, life's too short. Like, he hits me with those comments and then I forget, like, all the financial literacy stuff. But you have to be careful who you put around you too, because some people will gas you up and be like, oh, just
spend.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So in life, sometimes you have to catch yourself and be like, I need to discipline myself big time.
100%.
Because as I said, when it comes to tech industry, it takes a lot of discipline. Because there's some people that has a good idea, they're good at coding, but they don't even know how to speak to people. And people don't understand this. So many CEOs don't know how to speak to their employees. You say, oh, Zoom is at 1. You tell them, oh, I'm so sorry, I can come at 1:15. They're like, what do you mean you can come at 1:15? They start telling people stuff. Then you're like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
I quit. So you need to take away that pridefulness that's in you so that you can actually have employees. Because there's many black businesses do not have employees. They're like, oh, I'm a CEO, I'm a founder.
Yeah.
It sounds good.
It sounds good. Yeah, it sounds good.
It sounds good. But in order to generate a business that's running without you, you need to know how to talk to people.
Yeah, I agree.
Question, have you experienced that, like trying to hire somebody and felt like, holy, like this is more than what I thought?
Yeah.
Yeah. I gotta be careful about this. You know, I think. Yeah. I don't know. It's just a tough thing. Like, yeah, I don't. It's a touchy subject because I know if they heard it, they'll know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
So
but it's a tough one.
it's very tough.
Yeah.
But I'm also, again, when it comes to like hiring and stuff like that, or working with people, one thing that I'm doing now that I didn't necessarily do before is I thought I could be a better leader on like my communication and my understanding of what I can get out of people. Like, for example, like when it comes to the Black is New Rich stuff, I'm obsessive, I'm crazy, I want shit done now. But I can't expect the same thing in someone else because this is my baby.
Yeah.
And I think with a certain relationship or relationships, I didn't mess up the relationship, but I could have been a better leader and understanding that their drive is not mine. They're still, at the time, they're volunteering time, and I'm still getting pissed. But and it's not, I'm not getting pissed at them. It's because I have such a burning desire for what I'm doing. So ultimately, in the big picture, I just had to look at myself and take accountability, and just always reminding myself, like, how can I be a better leader to hire people, and maybe not hiring people that do multiple things. Let me just hire someone to do one specific thing, so we can just keep this simple. That's it.
Yeah, I respect that. I really respect that.
you.
Like, just the fact that you would take it on your. Not a lot of people do that, man.
Thank you.
Like, especially in this day and age that we're in. They would rather blame everybody else, and that kind of goes back to us talking about examples. Like, who do we have as an example? Like, especially like we were talking about this last time on the art side. It's rough out there with examples right now, boy. I tell you, boy. Our examples right now is not looking good. So it's like to have more people that we can look at, like, oh my God, wait, hold on, you look like me, and you're like the way you talk. When you decide to not blame everybody else and you put yourself, I'm the leader. So if things go wrong, it's on me. Like, when you say stuff like that, it shows as a good example. Like, I get to see something
100%
from somebody else that looks like me in a way that I should be kind of striving towards, you know, to get.
But it's tough because I remember, like, even growing up, no one spoke in my schools. Like, no one did any. I had no example. I just went through life doing my best. The only
that's what we got to do now. You know, fill that gap, fill that problem. The fact that nobody was in your schools. That's why we need to still be in the schools, even though I don't really rock with the education system, but we need to find our way in them because there's a lot of black associations now that we can just talk to certain people. Okay, come volunteer a couple hours every couple months, whatever it is, and we need to be in there, to be honest.
I remember at one point in Atlanta, because I attended ministry school for a short time. I attended 2, but in the second one I went to, I told them, like, oh, I want to go into the strip clubs. And they were like, why are you going to strip club? Like, are you in ministry school like this, that? I'm like, if you want to really do change, let's go in there. Like, let's go in there. And like, so no one wanted to go apart from like my one friend, and we went in there, and he was like, I was shocked because there's one thing to watch a music video. I remember, like, there were coaches pulling up, and people were coming out. They were dressed a certain way. Then one guy comes out with chains. Like, I don't know who. I went in there. And I'm like, hello, this, that, you know, the Lord, like, and I was doing my best. And I realized, like, we don't want to go in. Like, we want to be chilling and help from the outside. No, if you want to make change, go into the schools.
Go in.
Like, really go in and chill with the individuals and impact them. Instead of sitting on the outside like we could do and just benefit financially while the cycle continues. Go in there.
Be in the world, but not be of the world.
Exactly.
Because like me, I notice a lot of people love Atlanta. Like, when you go on Instagram, they love it. Then they go to the nicest restaurant. They take the picture of the pool. They take the picture. But me, I've been to real Atlanta. Like, I've been to the real one where the heroin capital depth. When they say the Bluff, that's why English Avenue. I've been there. So I know, like, it's totally different from the chilling and the lights and
what you see on social media.
Correct. The real one. Oh, you feel like you want to make change? Go in there and see how they'll receive you. If you come in with pride, you might not leave with your shoes on. But if you go in with humility, they'll welcome you with with love. That's how it is. So that's how I led him to the tech. I'm like, I'm not just going to do the tech from the outside and be like, oh, Albert speaking over here, he's going abroad. No, I want to be with the real people so that when they're like, oh, I saw that one guy. He spoke funny. But he told me something. And that's how kids are. They'll be like, oh, I remember like 3 years ago, he spoke weird, but like he was talking sense.
To be honest, I want to hear you speak more. Because for a year and a half, 2 years, I didn't even know what you sounded like.
Correct.
You know, so now I fit like that's it. I want to hear you speak more.
So it was 2 people. It was him. He was like, Albert, you need to speak in these places. And it was Dale from Black Wealth Co. He was like, Albert,
oh yeah.
You need to go out there and speak. I'm not bothered with the network. He's like, Albert, go out there.
You do.
He told me from the get-go. So I'm like, okay, let me just do this. And now I'm like, whoa. people need to hear from different people.
Yes.
Because we just have this image. And certain people, I'm like, oh, you know how to code? He's like, oh, people that code, they don't really look like it. I'm like, what do you mean? You mean like my skin? He's like, no, like, you like wearing like hoodies and
Exactly.
They thought the polo shirt with the that's what they were expecting. And I'm like, no, you can be yourself.
Yeah.
And you can make a difference in that lane instead of trying to be something you're not. And I feel like more people that look like us, we don't want to go into different cultures too. We want to play it safe. So I'm just chilling with your guys. No. Go to other places. They might not receive you the same way, but it's because they're not used to you going there. And that's what helped me. I learned from people that do not look like me. In Atlanta, I was helping one guy move his stuff. And he was like, come to my house, let me help. Like, everyone declined. They don't want to humble themselves to push the chairs. I'm like, okay, I got no family here. Let me push the chair. And that was the biggest house I've ever seen in my life. Wow. I said, how many acres is this? He's like, oh, it's 11 acres. I'm like, this is ridiculous.
Jeez.
And he's like, Albert, if there's anything you want me to do, I'll do it for you. I'm like, okay, no problem. But he helped me out in that answer. And I'm like, he didn't have to do that. So he was like, oh, Albert, I got a multifamily in Florida. I'm like, what's a multifamily? Because with me, I'm going to ask the question. He's like, oh, in every single unit, I got a family. He's like, okay, every single unit, how many units? He's like, oh, 24.
Jeez.
I'm like,
cash.
And I'm like, wait, you live in Georgia and you got a 24 unit in Florida? He's like, yeah, I got one in Florida and I got one in Macon, Georgia, and I got one in Tennessee. And I'm like, how do you control all that? So that was my breakthrough in real estate. And I realized to myself, like, if we don't ask questions, we're going to stay in the same position.
Yeah, I agree. 100% agree.
I even like the fact that you were even talking about, like, how you look, like, you know, and, you know, how people will think a certain way. It's like your skill level doesn't dictate how you look. You know what I mean?
100%.
And how you look doesn't dictate your skill level. And you, as whoever you are, once you have built the skill, and this is even what I would tell, like, the kids that I work with, I said, once you've built the skill up to expert professional level, you will get paid for what you do. Nobody can deny your skills. Like, your skills are what they are, regardless of what other people think. You know, and I love showing people that, because I'm telling you, if you work on something enough and for long enough, you will have a skill level that is different compared
undeniable.
to... It's undeniable. It's going to be undeniable. Like, you, for instance... You've done podcasts for years now. You have 73 episodes. Like, you've done this. You're gonna have a different skill level from somebody that has just started out or
100%.
Just doing having dust
tats on my hands.
It's going to be completely different, right? Nobody can talk to you. Talk to them. You know what I mean? Like, but it's true though, because you've now reached this level where you know what needs to be done.
Exactly.
Right? You've reached a level you could even hire somebody to help you do what needs to be done because you figured out all the aspects of the job, like, you know, everything. So
and I realized there's a reason why he's still doing it, because of humility. That's the
100%.
Because humility leads to longevity. And people don't realize, like, at some point, no matter how much God is blessing, you need to strip it back. And be like, I'm gonna need to humble myself. Because there's always someone you can learn from. Like, how have you realized, like, because you've spoken to so many people, do you feel like the humility is evident, or how do you approach it? Because as a podcast, you're asking the questions. How do you know when it's like, I'm not even bothered with this? Like,
you know what? I approach it with an open mind, obviously.
Okay.
You know, and I do background research, which helps.
Okay.
So I just go into every conversation and be like, yo, this is a free hour of a masterclass.
Okay.
For me. The fact that they are taking the time. Essentially, because we're just talking, right? So what people see is the after thing.
Correct.
So I just look at it like, wow, you took your hour to teach me some things and answer the questions that I want answered. I'm blessed. That's how I look at it, to be honest.
That's powerful. And I feel like we live in the time where this wasn't normal. Like, to go on YouTube and type someone up and watch them and learn from them. This wasn't there. Growing up, I didn't have anyone to type up and watch them. Now it's like free information. Before, you can't get the information like, oh, I want to know how to invest in real estate. Let me type this person up. And I feel like it's just as important to not be drawn towards the reels that you see all the time regarding investing. And why do you humble yourself and DM that person? They might not respond, but ask them a question. Oh, I don't know about this real estate you're talking about. Can you help me? But people don't want to do that. They rather sit back and just assume like, oh, he's not going to respond, so let me not reach out.
It's better to not know than to not be beg.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
There's this stipulation about, oh, I don't want to look beg like I'm begging them for help. Like,
Yo, who cares? At the end of the day, who cares?
Yeah.
It's just a perspective. And at the end of the day, everyone that you come across has a different perspective of you. So if that one person thinks I was begging or they think I'm whatever, that's one person of the million I might meet in my lifespan.
That's true.
Is what it is.
Yeah.
You know?
Because when it comes to the arts, it's artistry, it's creativity. And I realized like even from your podcast, you dipped into clothing too. What made you have a clothing line too? Because that's why I see them.
I'll be very honest with you. I really know nothing about fashion.
Okay.
I just thought the logo was hard. Let me slap this on a hoodie. And people gravitated towards it. Because, but I do think at the end of the day, I feel like my passion towards Black is New Rich is what's driving those decisions, you know? Okay. So I feel like I'm just being led in that type of way. Yeah. And that's all it really was to it. There's no the fashion thing. I don't know. Just look good on a hoodie, and we're gonna try some more merch and get it done. Because
I remember the first time that I even like looked onto your page, the artistry that I saw when I scrolled down. Because with me,
my personal page,
your page, like, because for me, I used to go to the library and I like art. I like Dürer, I like Caravaggio, Italian Renaissance. That's my thing. I love art. So when I saw the type of pictures you were taking, to me, I'm like, this is art. Other people might not see it that way.
I think it's art too.
Correct. But how do you approach that situation? Because it's different from what you're doing, like right now.
Or like, are you asking like, what do I think about it now? Or
like for example, you're talking about hardline topics. In the branch of podcast that you're doing now. Yeah. Then there's the Black is the New Rich. Yeah. But you're emerging from that world.
Yeah, I know. It's a little bit confusing for people to see because when they scroll down, they're like, what the hell is going on here? Honestly, I just feel when it comes to art, like I'm an artist first. Yes. And I just feel at the end of the day, like that when I was shooting like that, it was just a period of time that I was interested in shooting like that. And it was just a period of time, and that's how I let my artistic energy come out in that type of way. And then when I was interested by something else, I switched it up. I'm never gonna feel confined to only doing one thing. Like Black is New Rich is something today. Maybe when I'm 40, 45, it might come out something. I might use another medium to express myself. Yeah.
I'm not getting complacent.
Yeah, it's just I just feel like I'm gonna keep evolving, and where I feel like this message is best to come out is how I'm gonna do it, and I don't know how it's gonna be. We're gonna figure this thing out.
So, do you think you're gonna go into tech? Because to me, when I saw Black is New Rich, and I'm seeing you speak to people, and then I'm hearing the wisdom that is coming out through your videos. To me, that's full of content. In my head, I'm like, hey, if he just has an app and he's releasing this through the app with a subscription, he's going to monetize and it's a tech company. But how do you feel about it?
I feel that, so for example, you're into tech, you might see something that I don't right now. So maybe if you see something and you planted that seed might grow. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, I only have two eyes, but there's a whole world beneath me that other people with other skill sets, like you guys, can see. Yeah. And depending on the conversations and what you see, and if you plant that seed, maybe. Yeah. Because
I remember like when I came to Toronto, just cutting my hair in my barbershop, and I told them, I said, why do you listen to like this dancehall and my and all this stuff? And I can't imitate the Jamaican accent, but they're all Jamaicans, and they were just talking to me like, oh, this is what we love. I'm like, put it on Bloomberg. I said, what? Put it on Bloomberg, CNBC, learn to invest. He's like, invest? We don't know about investing. Saying type of stuff which I wouldn't repeat on the podcast. I'm like, okay, next time I come out here, bring your laptops. He was like, okay, bring it up. Every single one of them opened up Questrade. And I made sure every single one, and they were like, I can't fill it out. I'm like, why can't you fill it out? This is our documentation. I'm like, okay, let me give you another way to invest. And then the rest of them, the three of them, they all went on Questrade. They all bought NVIDIA. They all got an index fund. Like,
that's powerful. Yeah.
I feel like sometimes we need to come in and impact these people instead of just seeing them as a barber. I told them straight. I said, why don't you register for your own company? He's like, what do you mean my own company? I'm like, you cut my hair, right? He's like, yeah. Okay, think of a name and register that company. And then via tax, you can take your tax deductions. They're like, what is this guy talking about?
Yeah.
Like I blew, like their minds were just out of here. But I feel like we don't know and we don't want to help those by saying it.
We don't know what we don't know.
Correct. And I feel like there's always something you could tell someone to impact them.
Yeah. 100%.
You can see that in the arts, you can see that in the media space. But I just hope we are reaching a point where we can learn from each other and impact each other.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
We don't want to embarrass people too. Like I know like there's times where you want to tell somebody something, but you don't want to make them feel like, oh, they're not great because they need information on something.
Fair.
You know what I mean? And some people have that mindset in the back because of, I already know what it's like growing up in Caribbean culture.
Yeah.
Like what? Like everybody wants to already know. I already know.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to tell me about this.
Yeah.
Like, me, I already know.
Yeah.
But it's nice to get some information from somebody that actually knows something you don't know.
Exactly.
Because it allows you to evolve. It allows you to grow. Right. So you have to be able and be open to either criticism and to more knowledge.
100%.
Because last time on our last podcast, he said it's not you versus me, it's you versus your own knowledge.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, that's a bar.
That's a bar.
At the end of the day, it's you're going to either win against it or you're gonna lose. Right?
Yeah.
You're gonna lose with it or you're gonna win with it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I
So
agree.
how can you put yourself in a position to win with the knowledge you have or the knowledge you're gaining from other people around you that might know more than you? You have to be able to accept it.
Exactly.
You have to be able to accept.
Just humble yourself.
Right?
Yeah.
We have to go back to humility. Somebody is telling you something you don't know that can literally better your life. And even the fact that you were saying, like, maybe, like, maybe, I don't know. But if you have more information in this topic than me, like, I'm not so tech versed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's not my language. I don't speak code.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't speak that. But because you do, you can tell me something that I can better my life with.
That I can at least think about.
Yeah. I remember talking to you about like Roundtable. When I came in, I saw like what you guys are doing with the academy. I'm like, you guys are doing big things. This is ridiculous. And just speaking to your other, like, he was like, no one has ever told me this before. I'm like, what do you mean no one's told you? Like, you guys are like doing your thing. He's like, no one said it. And in my head, I'm like, why don't we tell people they're doing well? Like, you are special. Like, you're like Black is new.
But you know what that says about yourself?
Yeah,
that you're
yeah.
confident with who you are as a person.
Yes, true.
I feel like people that are not confident within themselves, they feel scared to tell people. I feel like you're confident within yourself, so that's nothing for you.
Correct.
So that's why.
But I hope, like, gradually the younger generation will be more, let's say, express themselves in a way that they can help each other and reach that new heights, basically.
Yeah, man.
This was powerful.
100%.
Yes.
Okay, so this was episode 2, and
Wait, sorry, I gotta say something. This is crazy. This is actually episode 2, which is crazy. I feel like you see this number here. The 2 has followed me forever. Like literally,
Crazy. My favorite number is 2.
Yeah, me too. So literally. So I don't know. I just felt that was a little crazy when I heard that. Like, damn, like
That's
that.
deep.
The 2's followed me everywhere. So
Respect.
that's good.
thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. Honestly,
We appreciate you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much. Start to see things aligning. You're feeling down. Can't imagine what you fight.